Welcome to the Mental Health Boot Camp podcast.
Woo!
This is the podcast where 4 psychotherapists, 3 of us Canadian, 1 of us American, serve you cutting-edge mental health knowledge. I am Dr. Ryan Howes, a clinical psychologist from Pasadena, California.
And I'm Dr. Brooke Lewis, a registered clinical counselor from the Greater Vancouver area. And
I'm Chris
Joanna
Boyd.
Boyd. Okay, go.
I'm Chris Boyd, a psychotherapist from Coquitlam.
And I'm Joanna Boyd, and I'm doing my bookkeeping class.
And I'm actually Joanna Boyd, and I'm back. And I'm
Woo!
also a clinical counselor from Coquitlam.
That's
and
great.
It's good to be here. And thanks
Welcome.
for representing me there, Brooke.
Anytime.
Welcome back, Joe. The band's all here. This is great. Feels like a
Hooray.
reunion, a homecoming of sorts. I feel like we should slay the fatted calf because the prodigal daughter has returned.
Oh
Wow.
my.
My goodness.
There we go.
Or
So-
just give a hip hooray.
I know.
That
I was like,
works.
I had a woo.
Yeah, like Ryan's idea.
My
Well,
goodness.
I'm just very happy. I always like it when the group is complete. It feels good. Joe, I hope you learned a lot of great QuickBooks stuff.
Yes, I learned some things. It was totally a new territory for me. I knew nothing about bookkeeping, accounting. So definitely had its ups and downs. I definitely shed some tears. But I did it. I passed, got an A in the class. And yeah,
Hey,
got an A.
Well
smarty pants.
done.
So but no, it was good. Did the 3.5-hour exam last Thursday.
Wow.
And yes, I'm all done. So it feels good. Feels good.
That's awesome. I'm going to send you my taxes this coming year. I hope that's okay.
I don't do it.
I
That's
sent
a
mine
weird
too. Got a shoebox full of receipts and a couple
Ah.
napkins with some IOUs on it.
Okay, send them over.
Send it over.
Yep. We'll see what happens.
So you're gonna make a big pivot now? You're a bookkeeper now? No more therapy?
No, I wondered if I would really if this would kind of spark or ignite an interest, but this is very just entry level stuff. So I don't know. I don't know if bookkeeping's for me, but we're gonna see. I think the more I learn about it and practice it, I think it'll be good. Use a different part of my brain. So, but yeah, it feels good to have done something new, and it also feels good to be done for now. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Way to step out of your comfort zone too. Like if it's something that's never really intrigued you, not your natural inclination, good for you.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yes, it was all very new. So I think I'm looking forward to kind of putting it actually into practice with regards to the business and see how that goes. Actually kind of practice it. So it'll be good. Fingers crossed.
Let's see, Joe. Let's recap a little bit. Since you've been gone, we talked about, gosh, I can't remember exactly when you left, but we talked about taking risks. We talked about retirement with your dad.
Oh, great.
Yes.
I guess you listened to that one, right?
I sure did.
We talked
forgot.
about this is your brain on food, which is our last book club selection, which was awesome. We had a guest. Sean came on and talked to us about adversity and obstacles, which was amazing. We've had some good times, but
That's great.
we're still very glad to have you back.
No, sounds like a good mix there.
Yeah, I think it has been a good mix.
So I'll try and make sure tonight's topic is a super doozy to welcome you back.
Oh man.
Oh,
All right.
It's a Brooke topic. Look out. Buckle up, everybody. It's a Brooke topic.
It's a top 3 for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Not on this one.
Yeah, you always say that.
I know.
Brooke always hits us with a doozy. So we'll see how this goes. But great to have everyone back. Let's hit the ground running here. Brooke, you ready to go?
Okay, I'm just going to type it out right now. So keep bantering for another, 30 seconds or so.
Okay.
Banter, banter, banter.
Chris,
Yep.
anything going on with the ugly Christmas sweaters this year? Since we're in November here, you guys got some plans?
Yeah, so we relaunched, well, I guess our website was always there, but we updated a few things, just trying to drive more online sales. And we actually put 2 resources on the website that are free. So design your own ugly Christmas sweater coloring page, and then
Nice.
some reflection questions that kind of capture the main aspects of the book. So in the book, you are encouraged to give, be kind and connect. So just some reflection questions on how you can best do that over the holiday season.
That's great.
Those are free. You can download them if you're a teacher out there. You want to, do a little.
Plug them, Chris. What's the name of the book and what's the website?
It's uglychristmassweaterbook.com, and it's called The Ugly Christmas Sweater Rebellion. Is the book.
Right on. Love the book. I think
I
it
just
is.
sent the question.
All right.
I have the book right here. Ugly Christmas Sweater
yes.
Rebellion. Anyone watching on YouTube can see the book in action. Love it. Okay. We are ready now for the ambush. I don't know what the topic is. Brooke does. We are all going to experience this together. Here we go. What advice would you give to new therapists? What do you wish you had known when you were just starting your career?
Yeah.
Okay. What advice would you give to new therapists?
Yeah.
All right. So we've got some
Just kind of general discussion stuff. I'm sure we can expand this as we see fit. Like if there's anything that had been surprising in your career that you didn't quite anticipate when you were going through schooling or training, might be a little different. Ryan, you don't have anyone in your family that does this as a career, right?
just me. You mean anyone else?
Yeah, like there's,
I mean,
like your siblings aren't.
No, my siblings aren't
Parents
therapists.
weren't.
No.
So no, and same with me, but Chris and Joanna, you guys might have known maybe a bit more than what we did and what Ryan and I do.
Oh, that's true.
When we start out, right? So, but yeah, just anything that maybe that you thought was surprising or things you wish you knew or advice that you would send along.
That's a great topic.
It is a great topic.
Mm-hmm.
It is a great topic. Yes, I didn't have anything really. I mean, I had things passed down through supervisors and things like that. And I did have friends as a family growing up, but I've also spent a lot of time as a supervisor. So I've gotten to share some of these tidbits with like trainees and students and all that sort of thing. So I'll just take over for the next 3 hours, if that's okay.
Sure thing.
Just kidding. Not going to do that. Let's, open it up, you guys.
So just curious. Oh, as Ryan is no longer there, but how long have each of us been practicing? Just to give an idea for listeners of.
That's a good. Yeah. So when do you think practicing would have started? Do you think that means like your practicum in your master's or?
I guess I think of finishing masters and starting afterwards, but this is true. Or it would have started. Yeah. So I guess I take, when did you start kind of outside of school practicing?
Okay. So mine, like I was done. So I started practicing in 2009.
Outside of school after you graduated? I mean,
yeah,
I finished my master's.
Just give me an idea of how long we've been in this field, Ryan, just to.
Yeah.
I thought it was 2010, but maybe I was 2011. I thought it was 2010 though. It was around the Olympics time.
Yeah, so I finished mine in like, I don't know, somewhere in 2008, but then the registration with BCACC, they only do it like once or twice a year. So I was spring registration. So it was 2009 because I wasn't able to get the 2008 one.
So maybe I was 2011 then when it was all said and done.
Hmm. Okay, so Chris, about 10 years?
Mhm. QuickBooks is already paying off, Joe.
I'm just saying, and Brooke, you're about 12, 13. I've been practicing for about 8 years, 8 and change. And Mr. Ryan, how about you?
2 or 3.
Sorry,
Just since we started the podcast. That's when I first started seeing clients. A year and a half ago. That's about all I've done.
He is actually an
wow.
imposter. It's not imposter syndrome. He's actually an imposter.
Actually, an imposter. It's always an interesting question. How long have you been practicing? Because when I was in graduate school, we saw clients while we were in school too,
Same with us. So
and
I just
yeah.
kind of, I just made it
So we're
after grad
going-
school.
Sure. So, yeah, I mean, I graduated in 99, so that would be 22 quick years right there.
There you go.
So yeah, that's been a while, I suppose. Things maybe were different in the 90s when I graduated. So, but yeah, that's a good starting point. How long have we been doing this? So I guess between us, that makes like almost 50 years of therapy, huh?
That would be,
It's pretty cool.
yeah.
Okay. So talking to a new therapist, like what would you have wanted to know? Was that the question, Brooke?
Or just any
Kind of
advice.
just, what advice would you give them?
Yeah.
Or-
Yeah.
Yeah, is there anything that you wish you had known, if there was, or were there any surprises along the way?
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
I think the reason I like kind of thought about the how long we've been working for is because gosh, it's weird for me that it's been as long as it has been. I know when I started out, I was like, oh, I just can't wait to get, a year under my belt. I can't wait to, get that 5 years. Now all of a sudden I'm, itching towards 10, and that just blows my mind. But there's that feeling, and I guess to normalize that feeling for new therapists of feeling a little bit I don't know, it's okay, you're not going to know everything, and that feeling might not ever really come. I think with the field we're in, there's so much to know, and there's so many different issues and populations and things going on, and just that, am I in over my head, or that a bit of that imposter syndrome, a bit for me that I've tackled over the years. And it's just to know that you're okay. Like, this is a new thing. I think you're going to continue growing, and it's okay to feel a little bit like, whoa, this is a big field and there's a lot going on, just to really trust that you are capable with where you're at. And so I remember being in a meeting and with some psychologists in our practice who had been practicing for decades. And it's a meeting where even they're consulting. And it was just so nice to be like, look, they're needing to still ask for support, and it's okay. Like, just to really normalize that, I guess. I don't really know what exactly I'm normalizing, but just, I don't know.
Yeah, all good points. Yeah, we have an interesting field that we work in, and I'm sure our field is similar to a lot of other fields out there. It's kind of different from what Joanna just did in terms of bookkeeping, because with bookkeeping you can learn the approaches and the techniques, and I think Brooke once said that the numbers don't lie, right? You can probably become more efficient at that. Whereas in psychology, there's such a high level subjectivity to it. Again, like many other professions out there. So yeah, definitely that imposter syndrome at first, saying, questioning your abilities and whatnot. But I think psychology has also come a long way as well in terms of what we've been focusing on. So there's definitely some knowledge that would have been nice to have back when I was starting. For instance, it's not always just about the strategy that you use, really trying to focus on that relationship and be patient with the process. So I think early on when I was doing counseling, I was listening to the issues and like, okay, I think I have an idea. I was able to conceptualize what was going on there, and I wanted to jump into problem solving mode, and I would jump into that too quickly though, where the client didn't really feel heard, right? Didn't feel validated. So trying to be a little more patient with the process a bit and really focus on that rapport first, I think, is knowledge that would have been nice to have, or at least emphasize more as early years of practice. So that's one thing.
Mhm. Yeah, I think part of what prompted this a little bit, this idea for this question or discussion, there's a gal that we know who's going through grad school right now, and she had reached out because a school that she doesn't go to, a different grad school program, is getting their students to go through all of the trainings. Not all of, well, many trainings. So they've done like all the levels of Gottman, they've done EMDR, they've done.
Whoa.
So the program, Joe, is Adler. The Adler
Really?
School is getting the master's students to go through about like off-site CBT training, yeah, all the Gottmans, the EMDR training, and I forget what else, but one or two other things. So this gal is going to Simon Fraser University, and she was like asking me what trainings I thought she should be doing, and as she's going through a master's, and with Adler, the students have to pay for that outside of their tuition, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
So, but trying to give her that advice of like, you know what, you need to, the trainings are always going to be there. There's always so many things to learn or develop or grow with, but you kind of have to be out there in the field and figure out what you like to work with and what you're good at working at, and what, you know, like being in the role so that you can find what you enjoy. And then when you do that, you're going to naturally find trainings that are going to fit with your perspective and your view and the style of work that you do. So not to get too bombarded in that. I think, yeah, similar to what Chris is saying, I think when we're going through training, we think that it's going to be like the sequential method of you do A, B, C, D, but it's actually much more fluid. And there's just so many pieces to go along with it. So if you get stuck being like, I did this specific training, so now I'm done with this because this is what I do, that's not going to lead to really good therapy, right?
I would agree. I have very strong feelings about that. I believe that certainly it's good to have some training in different things, have some knowledge about different things. I guess I'll go into that a little bit later, but honestly, I believe the most important part of training is to work on the therapist as a person.
Mm-hmm.
You can learn the tools anytime; those will be around for the rest of your career. It kind of breaks my heart a little bit to hear a graduate program just saying go take all these trainings, because really what that's I don't know the real meaning behind that for the program, but it feels like it's just kind of creating a bunch of technicians, like just apply these steps to different people and you'll be a good therapist. And gosh, I find that that's very reductionistic, you know, just a cookie cutter approach to doing this work, where you could just kind of train a seal in in a show, in a water show to do that. And that just doesn't seem like that's really taking into account the relationship and the space between the client and the therapist.
If healing only came from skills, people wouldn't need therapy, because there's so many darn books out there.
Yeah, right.
There's all the workbooks that you want. You can learn all the skills that you want. They're all over YouTube. They're all over the books. They're all over everywhere. But there's something beyond that in therapy. And I agree with you, Ryan, that like the therapist is a major mode of change. Like you need to be ready to go.
Right. Yes, I believe in that. Well, I got a few other things to share, if that's okay.
Yeah, you were taking notes for those who are listening, not watching. Ryan was there taking some notes.
Taking some notes. Lost in thought or deep in thought, thinking about something. So we're on the edge of our seat.
Oh, I mean, it's not all that profound, but just some things that I as I'm thinking back on supervision and some of the courses I've taught, you know, some of the things that I've tried to share with people. First thing is, if you're going to be a therapist, invest in a good chair.
Oh, and that is subjective.
Well, yes. No, totally. Yeah. Your good chair is not going to be my good chair. It's got to be a good chair for you.
Mhm.
And honestly, it might cost a lot of money, but it's worth it, because if you're going to spend 10, 20, 30, 40 years sitting down in your profession, you ought to have a chair that is not just comfortable, but supportive, something that's
Mhm.
going to be good for your posture, good for your back. Many therapists have bad backs as a result of just sitting so much.
Mhm.
So it is not an extravagance to plop down some money for a good quality chair.
I
So
like
that's on the most practical point. I have this chair here that I'm sitting in right now, which is my office chair. This is now my COVID home office, but I have no problems with the fact that I'd plop down a bunch of money for this chair, and it is serving me well. I started off with a really fancy looking chair that was not
Yeah.
good for my body, and I knew that after a year or two. So
Yeah. Well, I'll show you my counseling chairs right here.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
That is a wooden chair that looks hard as concrete.
That's the
Old school
home
housing.
office chair. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. By the office that we all share, there's like chairs. A lot of them are like Costco executive chairs. Obviously, listeners can't see how tall I am ever, or people on video, but I'm short. I'm like 5'3". So these chairs, I'm like the size of a child. So the chairs are very, very uncomfortable. So my favorite chair is like a one that used to be at the front desk, but I don't think they liked it very much. So it's actually like an office type chair, like a mesh back. And yeah, but it's a smaller chair and it has lumbar support. And
yeah,
it's just perfect. Yeah, it's my perfect little chair. I love it. I'm with you.
good
So
chair is important. As I'm thinking about this, I'm talking to the oftentimes, or these thoughts are coming to me are for the people who are about to emerge into the profession, right? Who are maybe they've been in graduate school for a while, they're about to launch out and kind of figure out what they're going to do next. And some of what I end up telling them is a bit of undoing some of what they've learned in some ways, which is sort of the paradox of this work. We have to learn a lot of this work, a lot of the theories, things like that, and then sometimes we have to sort of set those aside at the same time. So one of the things that I try to impart to new therapists is that it's not all about you, which is a common concern from new therapists. It's like their concern is the reason why they're so nervous going into sessions a lot of times early on is, oh my gosh, what am I going to do to mess up in this session? Or how am I going to cause problems for the client or something like that? Or what do I need to do in order to fix this person? And I think an important lesson for new therapists is it's not all about you. You're part of a healing process. Something I tell people is a lot of times new therapists think they have to take a client from A to Z, when oftentimes our job is to take them from D to E. You know, we're just a part of a longer journey in people's lives, and we're not always going to be the sole catalyst for change in their life, right? A lot of times that just means learning to collaborate with the client. Like that's a big part of it. It's not that I'm the person who has all the wisdom and all the knowledge and I'm going to impart that to the client and suddenly they'll get better. Sometimes we need to work on these problems together, you know? So what do you think? You know, gosh, you're feeling isolated. What can we do about that? You know, and brainstorm with the client about what sort of solutions there might be. If you feel all the pressure to provide all of the answers, that's setting you up for too much pressure, I believe, as a therapist. There are other resources people can reach out to, and we have to know how to use those, whether that's other therapeutic resources, specialists in certain areas, books, programs, other things that people might be able to tap into. So it's not, again, all about us. And also that I believe that it's important throughout our careers to keep consulting with other clinicians, right? So again, it's not all about you. So if you have something difficult coming up, it's important to keep good connections with colleagues. As actually before we started here today, I consulted with you guys about something, and And I think it's important for us to keep in contact with other clinicians so that we know that we're not just isolated in this work, right?
That's great. All great ones.
All great ones. I'm just getting started, Chris.
He was writing for a long time.
I was writing for a long time.
Okay. All right.
I mean, if you have anything to add or
I
subtract, go right ahead.
No, I think just that, yeah, consulting piece I think is big. All of that is important. I just think that, yeah, if you're working in private practice on your own, make sure you can set up with someone you might know, or a grad school friend, or there's a mentor that you can connect with, and just don't be afraid to ask for support or help if you don't know something, or you need there's organizations online, or some different counseling groups, whatever you need, but just don't be afraid to ask for help. I don't think you're going to be met with judgment. It's not going to be like, oh, you should know this. It's yeah, let's talk about it. Here are some ideas. And gosh, we do that all the time. Like, I'm working with this client, and do you have ideas of how you'd work with them, or what do you think is going on? So it's just ongoing. So it's definitely a big part, and so important, I think, for all of us.
Absolutely. And you guys have a group practice, so you guys probably have regular consultation meetings or business meetings or something, right?
Twice a month.
Yeah. So someone can bring up something, or maybe informally bring up something in the lunchroom and just talk through cases, that sort of thing.
Yeah, the door's open. I think everyone's open to consulting. And then these meetings are fantastic. Like, I think we had 9 or 10 people on there yesterday, and people present cases and leave with lots of great ideas. So also just encouragement and normalization, and there's so much more that goes along with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, yeah, when you're a new therapist and you present a case, and there's the person that has been there for 30, 35 years, and they say, oh gosh, that sounds like a tough case. It's really good to hear that, right? Because it is a tough case. Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of curious, Ryan, is self-care on your list?
Self-care?
Or self-care, like
Well, I think it's so important.
leaving work at work? Did that crack your list?
That was covered in episode 1 of the boot camp, and so I just kind of left that off this time around. But I certainly would say that's all incredibly important. Sure.
Yeah. No, I really think so. Like, we have a very important job, right? Like, people are coming to us in a very vulnerable and fragile state, and we need to be there for them, and to be there for them, we need to take care of ourselves. And I know that we all talk about self-care, and it's kind of like a buzzword or a buzz term or whatnot, but in some ways I almost feel like it's not emphasized enough, that we do need to make sure that we're out there and doing things that we enjoy, and having fun, and making sure we're eating well and sleeping well and exercising and managing our own things and going to our own therapy and doing all that. Otherwise, you're walking in the room and you're not going to be sharp. You're not going to be able to be attuned and present and there for that person, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think, and that could be, useful information, of course, for other professions too. And I think those lines are becoming very blurred in these virtual times, where work and home have become very much connected. But work is, you want to do everything you can to do the best job you can. But when you go home, that's when you got to do other things. You got to connect with your family, your friends, or again, self-care, just have that balance. Because I've seen that a lot with the younger therapists I worked with, or help supervise, is they have a hard time disconnecting work, and they go home and fixate and maybe ruminate on what they have heard, and they get burnt out.
Yeah.
Right.
Which goes back to, it's not all about you, right? I mean, sometimes we have to say, I'm going to give it my all for this 50 minutes or however long. And I'm going to, if there's something above and beyond, I'm going to consult. And beyond that, I have to learn to kind of let it go and say, I'm going to trust that the client has the resources they need. And I've got to turn towards my own life or towards my other clients now, that sort of thing. Yeah. That's an important skill to learn. About theory, I will say this, because this is where I was kind of bristling a little bit with the just go to this training. I would say that in therapy, from my experience, that theories or what we call theoretical modalities, therapeutic orientations, these are all a good servant but a poor master. Meaning, I think that we should learn these things. Whether that's Adlerian work or psychodynamic work or CBT or DBT, all these different theories. We should learn some of these things, but we shouldn't be driven by those. Like, we shouldn't be just a technician who's applying this to our client. I believe these are tools that we use in our practice when we need to, but I think that the primary part of the therapeutic relationship is the relationship, and it's you, Brooke, connecting with your client, and you, Joe, and you, Chris, and me, Ryan, just us being in the room, being curious, being interested, and noticing our feelings as they come up, and using those. Another bit I like to say to clients or to new trainees is that your body is an instrument, and every client plays you differently. Meaning, if you're sitting in a room with a client and you feel something, you start to feel agitated, or you start to feel sad, or you start to feel anxious, that's telling you something. That's giving you a piece of data that maybe is not on the intake form, or it's not something that they're necessarily even saying, but you have this feeling in the room. And that's a bit of information that maybe that's how other people in their life feel, or maybe that's something that they're feeling and kind of helping you to feel. I know it feels a little squishy, new agey stuff, but I do think that, people who've been doing the work for a while, I'm sure all of you guys have experienced that. Someone comes in and says, there's all the words that they're saying say that they're very happy, but you have this feeling of just heaviness and sadness. You're like, wait a minute, this is something that's not connecting here, right? And that's a bit of information for you to take with you and be like, okay, what's that about? Maybe you want to ask them about it, maybe you want to hold on to it for a while, but I really think it's important to be attuned with yourself when you're working with clients, because that's just as valid information as the words that are shared sometimes.
Absolutely. The therapist intuition, right?
And
that comes with practice and wisdom and experience, but it's there.
It's there.
You got to fine tune it.
It's there.
Kind of same with when there's quiet moments in therapy. Silence can be a good thing, right? It's not always that they're zoning out or not paying attention. So kind of fine tuning or picking up on that, I think, is a hard skill for people, but you get there.
Agreed. Totally agreed. So yeah, if two people were trained, let's say Chris and Brooke were both trained in cognitive behavioral therapy, I believe that I were to come into each of you as a client with anxiety, I believe you would be treating that differently. And I would actually hope that that's the case, because Brooke is a different person than Chris, that the way that you apply that work and the way that you relate to me with that work is going to look different. And that's not just okay. I think that's the right way to do it. Right. Because again, the relationship, I believe, is of primary importance. And if a client feels like a technique is being done to them instead of it's being in the context of the relationship, I think that makes a difference. People can tell that difference.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm getting too deep in the weeds here, but I think that's something that I hope that's a message to a new therapist that actually relieves some anxiety. Instead of feeling like, oh, there's only one right way to do this one thing, that actually, no, the who you are as a person is a very important ingredient in the therapeutic relationship, and we don't want you to extinguish that. We want you to bring that into the room and let that be part of the healing.
Yeah, I do think there's a balance there, though. I think there's a synergy there in terms of the approach and who you are as a person or clinician, because I think if a client senses that there's not a technique the therapist is falling back on, or if there's no method to the approach, then that may work against you, right? So I think there's a balance there.
I would certainly agree. I'm not saying just go willy-nilly and just do whatever you want in the room. I think it all has to be informed by by something that's helping the client. And I think if asked what you're doing, I would hope that you'd have an explanation for it.
Yeah.
But again, to say, someone sits down and says, I'm depressed, and say, okay, turn to Aaron Beck, chapter 4, verse 3. We're going to do this now. I don't think that just takes the relationship out of the equation, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. No, very good points.
But I agree with you, Chris. I mean, you have to be going somewhere, and there has to be everyone has to have a treatment plan in mind, or an idea of what are we doing here and how are we going to get there.
Yeah. And then, also keeping in mind when we're talking about skills and techniques, like psychoeducation is a skill or technique. So, for us to say, hey, do you mind me give you some information on that? It's a conversation, but it's also a skill, like you're providing something. The delivery or the setup of that skill or strategy, or to say, hey, I'd like to try some relaxation exercises with you. I have the script. I'm going to pull this script out and we're going to do this together.
Yeah. It kind of brings up the point too of, I think we talked about this at a earlier boot camp podcast, is the just really wanting that feedback from clients as well. So not avoiding that feedback, but wanting it. So I think everything is, I often tell clients, everything's fair game besides the way I physically look, right? So if they feel that the approach or the elements of therapy are working for them, that's great. If not, then that's okay too. Just, let's discuss that. Let's delve into that, because we can always make a pivot in terms of the approach, or maybe we're doing something or saying something that's kind of they don't agree with. So I find that, and a lot of this is based on a lot of research too, by of course Scott Miller and Barry Duncan, but that encourage feedback tools, because they say the more feedback you get on an ongoing basis with the client, the less likely they are to ghost you or just drop off, right?
Sure. And some of that feedback, I mean, Scott and Barry talk about actually filling out a form and kind of how are you feeling today? And on a scale of 1 to 100, boom, where are you? Which I think is an effective tool probably for some clients who kind of think that way, who kind of have a QuickBooks mentality, Joe. And for other folks, maybe it's a little less formal and more like, so how are we doing? How's this working for you? And kind of pulling out the conversation of how's this relationship working for you? So I agree though. We need that feedback. I welcome it every time someone says, hey, that didn't quite work for me, or didn't seem like you were listening there, or something like that. I want to know, because I want to help provide the best service I can to these folks, right?
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes maybe it's not the best fit, and that's okay too. You can make that referral and, don't take it personally. There might be a lot of implicit reasons why that's happening. So yeah, I think for new therapists, often confidence can be a bit of an issue, because you're just trying to get some momentum and try to figure things out. So if you get some harsh feedback from a client, or if it's not working for a client, I don't want that to devastate someone,
Sure. A couple other little points I wrote down. That's all right. One, echoing what Brooke said, getting your own therapy, I think, is key for a therapist. Not just, some people say, oh, it's important for you to get your therapy so you know what it's like to be in that chair. And I think that's important to some degree, to know what it's like to be the client and to have that experience, I think is valuable. Honestly, I think you can get that in a couple of sessions. I think what's really more important is to really explore yourself, to know yourself, know what you're bringing into the room. If a client brings in a difficult relationship with their sister, right, and say maybe I had a difficult relationship with my sister, which I didn't, but if I did, it's important for me to know that, so that I'm not reacting out of my own pain and my own relationship. And talking to the client is like, well, you need to tell her this, that, and the other. Maybe that's me talking to me instead of me actually talking with the client. It's just important for us to be able to separate my junk from the client's junk, and be able to say, okay, this could be a hot button issue for me, so let me keep my my eye on that while I'm working with my client. Just the more of that self-awareness you have as a therapist, I think is the better.
Mhm. No, they often say you can only take your client as far as you've gone,
Hmm.
right?
Interesting.
So if you haven't really worked through your stuff, you're probably not going to be able to help others work through theirs.
Mm.
That's interesting. I've heard that said a lot of times, and yet sometimes I feel like my clients go a lot farther in some things than I do. I've helped clients work through procrastinating things that, boy, I still procrastinate.
Or like how brave clients are. Clients are so brave.
Mhm.
In the amount that they're willing to share, or the vulnerability they can bring into the room, or trying to push themselves outside their comfort zones, or being resourceful into things and tackling stuff that's scary in their life. And my goodness, a lot of
Absolutely.
bravery, a lot of courage.
Yeah, we're the people they've chosen out of everyone, or at least given a try to really be vulnerable with and be intimate with. And it's a privilege to kind of get to know people at their, best and worst, and the good, the bad, the ugly. I think it's sometimes I sit there and I'm like, wow, this person is entrusting, all this in me, and I get to hear about their lives and create a space for them to share and try to help them through things. And it's pretty cool. So yeah, you just keep in mind precious cargo, I think, with all the clients, and knowing their bravery and how courageous it is to come into that office. For sure.
Certainly. I would agree with that. And I guess the final thing I would say is when that so much of it, at least the lens I look at this work through, is that it's so much of this is about relationships, and I mean that in a broad sense. Like I've already talked about how the therapeutic relationship is important, but if you're looking to build a career and to build a practice, it's all about all of your relationships in a lot of ways, right? If you want to be kind of an established therapist in your community, then the relationships that you have with your neighbors, the relationships you have with your kids' teachers, the relationship you have with people in all sorts of walks of life is important, because they all reflect on your professionalism and on your ability to relate to people, and who know, and also, the clients that you have who leave, even, if they're like, okay, I'm done with therapy, treating that in an important way, and being respectful of them, and professional with them is really important, because that person might have a friend who says, hey, I'm looking for a therapist in 5 years, and they say, oh, I know this person who was really great, and you should give them a call. So it's so much of it's about not just being warm and caring in the room. It's about how you're doing your life in a lot of ways, being respectful and kind to people around you. And this is not just all marketing. I just think it's a good philosophy in general, right? I don't think you can expect to be warm and caring in the room and then a jerk to everyone else you see and expect to have a healthy practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you guys are part of Rotary, right?
Sure are.
And those are relationships that you all have and nurture, and I'm sure it's not just about marketing. It's about being part of your community, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Yep. It really
Cool.
is. Yeah. I think another one I would give, just a reminder to new clinicians to stay curious. You're like, I don't think I know a therapist who is really goes an extended period of time of not being surprised by something that comes in the room, right? Like you're always confronted by something new, or some stuff comes up. And so you need to remain curious about your clients and what they're going through, and more resources that are out there, new books that come out, new perspectives that people are taking. how the general global climate, your local community climate, how all of that's changing and what's going on there and what impact that's having on people. And yeah, I think this is a job for a curious person. So if you feel like, oh, I've done my Gottman training, I'm done now, that's no.
No, I agree.
You're
That's
not done
gigantic.
yet.
Yeah. Read as much as you can. Stay on top of it. Read the Psychotherapy Networker magazine. It's always
A lot
been
of
a great
good
one
new
to,
things coming out of that.
yeah, for sure.
Yes. Listen to the Mental Health Bootcamp podcast.
Mhm.
Read the books of the book club.
Yeah.
Go to
Also-
some conferences,
Yeah.
meet some people.
I also had a psychologist, one of our colleagues, Simon, once tell me, reminded me that it's a marathon, not a race.
Mm.
Because sometimes new clinicians want to do as much as they can and work as many people as they can. And so I think that was some good feedback when I was first starting off.
It's true. It's true.
So we should do a course on feedback for new clinicians.
There's
You
a lot
know,
of stuff here.
there is a lot of stuff. Something else that I didn't write down that I'll throw out there, which is that again, going to the person of the therapist, I'd say if you have your own personal interests, your own things that you think are kind of odd or maybe not all that therapist-y, those might be great for therapy. In fact, I've known, I mean, here in Southern California, I knew a guy who was really into Dungeons and Dragons and started a Dungeons and Dragons group for teens. Someone whose hobby was surfing and started a surfer therapy sort of a group context for veterans. So, you know, the idea of what is a therapist, I think, is really expanded, and I think that's okay. I think it's great, in fact, because you don't just want people to be coming to Dr. Freud. You know, you want to meet people where they are. What sorts of things that you have, maybe that you have a passion about, you're interested in. You may find down the road that there are a lot of people who are interested in that, and that would be a great place to connect and talk through some of their issues.
Mhm.
Yeah. Jared DeFife, he's someone we met through you, Ryan, down at the conference there many years ago.
Jared.
And,
shout out to Jared.
Yeah, I think he's got a podcast out there as well. But he had a good advice too. And maybe we're getting a little too specific or technical here, but he was saying, like, yeah, find that passion, find that population and or what you want to work on and rock that, like become specialized, like do as much research as you can and blog about it and write about it. Because he said a lot of clinicians, they want to be good at everything and they want to work with all clients and all presenting issues, because they feel that might be the best way to build a client base. But Jared was saying is actually what, based on the research he read, was the opposite. The more specialized you are, people will come to you. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So maybe we're getting a little too technical here, but
I think that's an important question, because a lot of people, that is a big debate among graduate students, is should I be a generalist or a specialist? You know, should I really focus on a particular niche or learn to work with everybody?
and what's your take on that?
I guess my take is that I think at least during the training years, I think it's important to have a broad grasp of a lot of psychotherapy. You know, in my training, I was able to work with adolescents and the elderly and the chronically mentally ill and just kind of low income folks and people who are so. And I think it's helpful for me in the work that I do, because it's nice to be able to draw from some of those experiences, and I can spot things maybe that if I only worked in a specific niche, I might not have been able to see that. So I think it's important to maybe start off pretty broad, but then as you work on through your career, try to develop more of that niche. I mean, if you have an idea, like I want to work with eating disorders and only eating disorders, great, but during your training, please learn as much as you can about everything, because
Mhm.
not everything's going to be eating disorders, right? And there might be some things that you can borrow from different fields there.
Mm.
So I guess what I'm saying is both, Chris.
Hmm.
Yeah, start broad, maybe specialize if you want.
Yeah.
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 Remember when Joanna and I finished grad school, I think maybe my dad gave the same advice to Brooke too, is just get out there and learn.
Mhm.
So, and I think we all did. We worked in schools and not-for-profits and government entities, and eventually we came back and we're slowly started that private practice as well. But I'm a huge advocate for that too at first. Just get out there and learn, work in the
Mhm.
trenches a bit.
Exactly.
So I guess I'm saying both as well.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, even here I am 20 something years in, and I still don't have a specific niche. I mean, I wrote a book for men. I happen to see a lot of men in therapy, but that's not really a hyper specific. That's 50% of the population. That's not and I still see just as many females as I do males, or nearly as many. So I no longer work with kids because I'm just kind of aged out of that for myself, I think. But so I still consider myself somewhat of a generalist, and that's okay for me. But I'm not disparaging the people who are like, I work with trichotillomania and only trichotillomania. If that's what they want to do, that's great. Which, for the listeners, that is an anxiety disorder based on this kind of need to pull hair.
Mhm. Yeah.
You feel a sense of soothing from hair. I've actually worked with people with trichotillomania, but I'm not a specialist, so that's okay.
So just a quick American Canadian difference. Niche, we call it niche.
We will say both, either or, and I think when we're being a little more on the upper crust side, we might say niche.
Oh, I feel like we default niche.
Yeah.
Just thought I'd throw it out there. It's like niche, like itch.
Itch.
And I started like rhyming in my head.
Itch.
Pitch, Mitch.
I think,
Glitch.
at least in this part of the country, I think you'll hear it about equal parts down here. Find your niche, people might say, or your niche. It's kind of like tomato.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. If somebody had told me to find my niche, I'd be like, I'm sorry, what? Like, did I lose my niche? Where is my niche? Do I need to
Nice.
go buy one? What is this? Yeah, I'd be
Right.
quite confused.
And I guess to bring it back to Joe here, Joe's learning QuickBooks to help run a group practice. One of the common complaints that I hear from nearly every private practice clinician was, why didn't I learn more about how to run a business when I was in graduate school?
Oh yeah.
Because there's so much to that is just never, hardly ever taught to people.
Yeah.
How do you actually hang out a shingle and get a business running? There's a lot of moving parts to that.
And especially if you're going to have associates or front desk staff.
Or if you're going to bill insurance or something like that down here. Yeah.
Yes, up here as well for some.
Mm-hmm.
Some providers, psychologists can direct bill too. But yeah, there is a lot of behind the scenes work. Tons.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So there are workshops and classes and things to help people with that, but oftentimes it's just handed from person to person. You know, someone who's been in the practice, been in the field for a while, might just help someone else getting started figure out how to get things off the ground.
Yeah.
But that's a challenge, and it takes some time. Don't expect to know that from day one.
Mm-hmm.
We do it?
Well,
Did we answer the question?
I think we did.
Oh,
I
good.
think we did. Well, actually, maybe we're not the ones who should answer that. if anyone has any other questions about how to start off as a therapist in private practice or getting started, things you would like to know, please send those in to us. We'd be happy to take a stab at them, right? So I guess that's it for the night, right?
I guess so.
Don't forget the book that we're reading for the book club.
It's probably nothing.
It's probably nothing. And we will come back to talk about that.
Mhm.
But that's it for tonight, everybody. Joe, great to have you back. Woo!
Connie's
Yeah.
back.
Good to be back.
And we will wrap up. So like and subscribe on all of the places. Audible, iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, everywhere. And send any questions to info@mentalhealthbootcamp.com. Tell a couple of friends and new therapists to listen. And that's it for tonight, everybody. Good night.
Good night. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.